Don't worry. And we're live. And with the probably just with the words, don't worry. But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I am Brian, and I am very, very happily to announce that I am being joined by JD Glasscock, a name that just rolls off the tongue.
Hey, blame my Scottish ancestors for being that drunk, man.
So the very, 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 very first question I have to ask, because we have a lot of LitRPG people in this crowd, a lot of people that grew up with games, and you are wearing a Warframe founder t-shirt.
So I am, yeah. I was a founder, yeah.
That is incredible. So I need to ask, what's your favorite frame?
I haven't played it in a while, but my favorite one, I probably played it again. Every once a year, I'll go play for a month or so, and then I move on again. Rhino Prime.
Okay, you can tell a lot about a person, but when I was starting it, I was like, I'm shit. This is shit. I don't like this. The story.
I like the Oberon too, but
yeah.
The horn guy or whatever. But my go-to that I always go back to is my Rhino Prime. And then I'm always playing around with different weapons, bro. I mean, I'm literally I don't do the sniper type shit. I have I forget what I had. I had like one of those dual-sided glaives, I think, that I use. I forget what it's called though. And then I have those semi-auto one of the Prime, it's the gold rifle or whatever. I forget what it's called.
But once I found Vauban, and it was just this guy that controls like all of these balls that can explode and shit. I was like, okay, this is my new favorite character.
I just like the invulnerability ability of the Rhino, and I like his stomp.
Yes,
because I like going right into melee, and then using that stomp and sending them all up into the sky, and then.
It's the epitome of like power fantasy as a game, because it's not about like, strategy. It's literally the only strategy is like get from point A to point B, kill everything on the way. And that is just very, very, very fun.
I like the charge ability too, his ability to do that charge, because it does almost the same thing as the literal stomp. You kind of just roll through people, and I like the high defense on the guy.
Yeah, I know. I remember I played it by myself, and I was like, oh, hey, Jez. I was playing it by myself, and I was like, oh, God, I'm good at this game. And then someone else joins your party that's been playing it for a while, and you're like, oh, my God.
I hate it when they speed race. I end up soloing a lot because I want to just enjoy the game. And a lot of times when you do it with others, they're just all speed racing through. And I'm like
15 seconds to get to the exit point.
Like, dude, I get that you already know the map and stuff like that, but like I'm trying to just enjoy, and then within 40 seconds, mission done. I'm like,
I get this so much, but yeah, it's really funny. It's like, Brian, are you lost? Brian, are you lost? Do you need us to come back and get you? I'm like, yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time. Like I said, I'm a founder, so I was like in that playing the beta before that even launched. So it was
amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
The best community management I've ever seen. But anyway, sorry, less gushing about Warframe and more talking about books and stuff. So I have to say that of all the things I have ever seen, so you've kind of just like exploded onto the scene a little while ago. And
I don't know about explode. I certainly walked in.
Yeah, you made an entrance. You were there. You were there. But
I just moved over to comments and saw everyone saying hi. So hello. No, not really, dude. I'm like I would say I was still pretty small fry compared to a lot of the authors.
Oh, no. I get that as just like fledgling starting off and stuff like that. But one of the things that I did want to bring up is that one of my favorite things of all time is your merchandise. Viva la Glasscock,
man. It's like inherently like screams this is going to be like flowing like wildfire at some point.
It is so fucking like I've never in my life wanted to buy a piece of LitRPG merch until I saw the Viva la Glasscock, and even if I buy it ironically, I will buy it.
Well, that's the whole point of it. I mean, it was literally an inside joke with me and a bunch of my friends, and it actually started with over a decade ago when I was doing. When I was shooting films and stuff like that, and I would make jokes with people I know saying, at one point we will have a shirt that says "Viva la Glasscock," and it will go like wildfire. And then I would make jokes like, everybody needs a little Glasscock in their life, you know what I mean, like all this stuff. So recently, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, I have books now, all that stuff. I might as well finally do that and put a shirt out.
Yeah. And like every author that you'll talk to will say merchandise sales just doesn't work. As in, like, you know, unless you classify it in signed copies into merchandise, it just doesn't really work. But I have a feeling that your results might be skewed because it just
dude, I
looks
let my
fun.
co-host Mark Potter from my talk show. I let him do all that, and I told him he could keep all the profits from it until it got big. I'm like, well, if you start selling a shit ton, then we can talk. But in the meantime, just hello. In the meantime, just keep whatever you make, and you know.
Yeah, I was about to say hello, but then I've realized I've no idea how to pronounce that name. So I'm going to say hello, now Mecca. Anyway, sorry, now Mecca. That could be a name for a character. Anyway, so I think that's a fantastic segue though, because I want to know the history of JD Glasscock. So, like, you've worked in film, you've done poetry, you've done all these things. Where did it all kind of start for you? Where did you kind of start your career? And then we'll work our way all up to the books.
1989, 1990. My mom, I was like, just graduated high school. My mom was like giving me a bunch of shit of like, what do you really want to do with your life? What do you really want to do with your life? And I had been thinking about it for a week. It was something that was rolling because she wanted an answer. And I was at a stop sign driving, and I had whatever the novel was at the time I was reading, because I've literally read voraciously since I was like 5 or something like that. I was kind of a loner, so that was like my world, playing D&D and even D&D. I didn't have anyone to play with, so I would just read all the different world books, like buy Rifts and Palladium and D&D and Warhammer and all that stuff. And then I would read all the world creation building mythos, and then create like 30 characters and run all these stories in my head. And then I would go on and buy the next role-playing system or whatever. So I was at a stop sign with a novel that I was reading at the time, spread out on my steering wheel, reading it as I was waiting for the light to turn green. And then I'm like, oh, I want to be a writer, which is funny because I didn't actually write a novel till 9 months ago. But so I decided I wanted to be a writer, and I ended up creating this vast world. I had this big red notebook. I think I still have it somewhere. And I literally, hand wrote this entire world, fantasy world I was going to do. But by doing that, I made myself start keeping a journal. And then I realized immediately that I started writing poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really my first thing. I started going to open mics, because back in the day, that was before YouTube, before all that shit. You had to actually go and stand in front of a bunch of drunk people and at a bar.
Is that not terrifying? Because, like, if you were a loner introvert, because I related to you up until this exact moment, and I'm like, oh shit, I would not be standing up.
Well, I have an ability to put myself out there. I just naturally like spending a lot of time by myself, but I have the ability to go out there. I mean, I played sports most of my life and all that stuff. So, so I immediately, plus I was that age, man. I wanted to flirt with girls, man. So I would go to, I started going to these open mics, and I realized the response was insane. And growing up, I had a sister that was 1 grade ahead of me that was the most popular, beautiful girl in school.
Wait, good insane or unhinged insane?
The response, you mean?
Yeah, the response.
It was a bunch, man. I mean, you're talking about that age, dude. It was a lot of chaos. Yeah. Well, what I found was, so I grew up with the most popular girl in school, my sister, 1 grade ahead of me. So I was always under her shadow and a loner, and it bothered me. So all of a sudden I got out of all that when I was out of high school and started doing this poetry thing, and girls that didn't know me were all of a sudden flirting with me and all that stuff, and all this really good response of me doing spoken word. And then I ended up moving into slam poetry, which is like competition, and made a couple national teams. And then I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then moved. I naturally started shifting from poetry to writing songs. And I'd already a few times opened up for bands, doing spoken word or whatever. Then I started like doing spoken word over some musicians that wanted to back me. And then that ended up becoming a band and actually doing music, punk rock, blues. And we were together for like a decade, called Sofa King in Seattle. But then that died out because I realized I was always a much better songwriter, and I was good at live performance from the slam poetry and stuff, but I wasn't a greatest singer, man. You know what I mean? So, and then I had an epiphany. Some guy that loved the way I wrote poetry and all that stuff. He was taking a class at a junior college, a film class in Seattle, and he had to shoot some kind of 2-page thing as part of his class. And so he asked me to write it. And I'm like, I've never written film. And he goes, dude, I love your writing. Just write it. So I read Sid Field's screenwriting book, took a few things from that, and then I wrote it, and he loved it so much that and then all of a sudden I had an epiphany. I'm like, that's what I want to do now, is I want to start, writing that. So I ended up writing a bunch of scripts, but then I realized that Seattle wasn't the place for that. So I ended up moving to LA in 2009 and getting a job as a background actor and stand-in on film. That's what I did for a living the 8 years I was there. And then I shot a bunch of short films while I was there. I was lucky enough and blessed enough to do well at festivals, win a bunch of awards and all that stuff. And then I moved to Texas about 5.5 years ago because my mom needed me at the time, and she was here as well as my little sister and her family. But then I realized I was kind of burnt out. I shot like 16 short films, and I was burnt out on doing short films because there's no money in short films. Short films is kind of just more of a calling card show. You can shoot film and write film and stuff like that. So I had already had, because I think I started writing film in like 2006. I already had like probably 5 feature films. And so I'm like, I want to try to do feature films. But what I realized quickly is my lack of desire of social networking and politicking and socializing, which are not my strengths. And literally, I don't go out like you need to do all that stuff. None of the awards for short films mean shit. And I spent 5 years trying to get funding for features, and that was a whole journey unto itself, because there's a lot of people in that industry that will tell you, yes, they're going to do it, and then they end up being full of shit. And after about 5 years of doing that, I said, you know what? And I was in the middle of writing my 6th feature, and about 2 months before that, I had started reading LitRPG. I started with Dragon Mage by Vidar, and then I went from that to all the big ones, the Hugh Fights and Alaron and all that stuff. And that was literally all I'd been reading. And then so as I was in the middle of writing the 6th feature, I was like, why the fuck am I writing another goddamn feature film when I haven't even gotten funding for my other 5?
Yeah.
And I was about halfway through that one, and I said, dude, why don't I actually do something where I can actually, it only relies on me, and I can actually maybe make a little bit of money on it. And so then I decided that I wanted to start writing novels. And now at like 9 months later, I've actually put out 4, and I'm about halfway through my 5th.
So let's talk about that, because like Blood Brothers, as in, it was, when I previously said, like, that you kind of burst onto the scene. What I mean is that most new authors don't have a backlog, and like or they don't have, like, when they come out to release, it's like you're lucky if it's in 6 months later they'll have a book too.
I didn't have a backlog. I wrote that all. Like,
you wrote. No, but what I was saying is that you were essentially always like there. You were switched on. You were just like bang, 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 and they were all coming out. And I'll never forget your covers, because I remember thinking to myself with one of them, it was like, it's kind of like if Pumbaa from The Lion King was in a suit of armor.
You talking about those?
Yeah, and I've never been able to move that from my head.
Turn into Iron Tusk Boar.
I've never been able to remove it from my head. I'm just like Hakuna Matata, and I'm looking at that fucking pig. Sorry, the Iron Tusk Boar. But
so he's still but mentally he's still a pot-bellied pig. He still wants his treats, his pets, his he's a brute in combat, but literally as soon as combat's done, he's like, tell me how magnificent I am. You know what I mean? Like, give me pets, give me treats, give me stuff. And even you said a couple upgrades, but even then he spends most of his time, his like girlfriend, the Lola, the umbral raven crow. That's his girlfriend, who constantly is like pissed off because she's trying to pull off the all the viscera and flesh from combat off of him and groom him and stuff like that. When he doesn't really give a shit, he's like,
So Blood Brothers. Talk to me about that. If you were to build me the scene, what is Blood Brothers? So Grimdark, and I understand what Grimdark is.
Yeah, a lot of people don't though, which is funny. I'm like, you think they would understand it because in the root words of grim and dark that they would get that, but they don't. So recently, I had to put up kind of a disclaimer.
Yep.
Hey, think of Grimdark as like a rated R film as far as the lack of filter with violence, intimacy, and emotional trauma. That's pretty much what it is. Like the original Conan Barbarian books were that. Probably one of the best they'd ever done in Abercrombie with the First Law trilogy. But it's a portal. It's basically these two brothers. They're not blood brothers, but their fathers were Army Rangers together. And Dominic's parents died when he was really young, and so they took him in and they raised them as brothers. They're about the same age. I think Dominic's like 6 months older or something like that. So they become ACS competitors, which is actually a real thing, armored combat sports. Think of it like MMA, except with actual armor and weapons.
Whoa, I am going to Google right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my world, I made it a lot bigger. I made it basically by the time the world ends and the whole portal fantasy begins, I made ACS just a couple steps below UFC in popularity, which is not true. It's actually not very well known. So I kind of ad-libbed there and made it like this huge thing. And these two kids started in juniors. And then the other main character, Mason, his father, who raised both boys, they called Pops, he passed when they were only 11 or 12. So they were very devastated. And he had already trained them since they were kids because he was the ex-Army Ranger and he was a collector and aficionado of medieval weapons. So he had trained these kids since they were young to utilize those. So at first they went to a Renaissance fair and started getting into that kind of stuff. Then they were a little too brutal for that. So they were getting complaints. So then when they were about 13, 14, they went into juniors because ACS had gotten so big, they now had a junior division. They tore through that. Then as duos, because you have different competitions, but they always competed as duos, back-to-back brothers. And then the statement they make to each other, which is the title of the first book, is before every fight to remember who their fathers were. They say the bones of our fathers.
Yeah.
And that's how they started every fight. That they're the children of two Army Rangers, which are the elite of the elite as far as.
So that sounds excellent. If it is a portal fantasy, then I love the fact that, like, with all of these stories, it's kind of like, I just live in normal society and I'm just going to be plopped into a new fucking world. And look, I'm amazing with a great axe. It's like, no, you're fucking not. That is heavy. You don't know how to use it. Like, exactly. You've never been on a horse before in your fucking life. You're shit. Whereas with this, you've actually built up realistic of why they will be proficient. Upon entry.
Why? Yeah, because it happens when they're 22. Now they've been pro 2 years after the whole juniors thing, and then they literally have already been in the finals, lost against who end up being some of the villains in the New World, the Hammer and the Wall, which are these two ex-Marines that are probably like in their mid-30s that they literally already lost. And then they made it to the finals again. And this time the finals are in Seattle, which they're from Devil's Pond, which is a pond, like a lake right outside of Seattle. And they're on the way back from the semifinals to rest at their house before they go to the finals the next day against the same guys, the Hammer and the Wall. When the whole thing happens and the system all of a sudden kicks in and says, in 20 minutes, your entire planet's going to be destroyed, and you're literally all going to be sucked into a tutorial where most of you will die, and you have 20 minutes to get your shit together.
Okay, that sounds compelling.
And that's when they find out all this is happening, right when they arrive home, and their mom is like in a deep traumatic That's the thing is I try to write. I do the same thing in film as or in books as I do in film, which I believe in reality. I believe in being as realistic as possible and writing characters as realistic as possible. What I found though is some fans, like bash the reality. Oh, why are they being traumatic? I'm like, dude, your whole planet gets destroyed, and you're literally just sucked into a goddamn like some video game thing, and you think people are going to be all just taking it in stride and let's
no, I get you completely, and it's the suspension of disbelief. Like when I wrote Wild Cards, everyone was in like, oh, it's VR, there can't be any stakes, hard pass. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course there can be hard stakes. Like, yes, there can be. But like with this is like writing realistic characters, it's like a lot of people just project what they know, and if they don't understand the nuance of certain things,
and maybe
they'll
they
just be
haven't
like,
had
that's
trauma
wrong.
or heavy parts. I've had a life that is, unfortunately been a lot of heavy emotes and stuff like that. And when people are stressed and traumatic and overwhelmed by shocking events like life and death type events, they don't always act in a correct manner. They make manic decisions. They make stupid decisions. They react not thinking clearly.
Like, and this is the thing, because a lot of authors write from what they know, and then they make up what they don't. Now, obviously, research can come through and through, but like, for example, there's people that write about violence that have seen combat within the military, and they write it in such a visceral way when people will be like, that doesn't sound right. And they're like, yes, it does. That is literally it. This is the noise that someone makes when they die, not what the movies say. And then you're like, you seem pretty convinced on that. It's like, let's stop this now. So
yeah, I get it. Because to me, I love that when I'm reading. I love books when I get distracted when they're being unrealistic. You know what I mean? Like seriously, you literally just had your entire family killed, and you're just literally you're acting like it's just another day in the park.
Ooh, I leveled up, and it's like, okay, do you want to maybe go see a therapist?
I mean, so people make in real life, in real traumatic situations, people make stupid decisions, make manic decisions. Some people keep a cool head, but I mean, it's that whole. But even those people that keep a cool head, sooner or later, it's going to bubble up whatever trauma they're suppressing. You know what I mean? Like someone gave me shit because in the first book, the mom becomes infatuated with a dwarf, and they said it happened too quick. I'm like, man, her entire life of raising two kids. Her best friends die. She takes one of the kids. Then the father dies, the husband, and she's still raising two kids. She has suppressed all of that trauma for like years, and then all of a sudden this happens. It's like she's trying to grasp for any kind of straw of any kind of thing to salve her trauma that she can grasp, and people just don't. I don't know. I just think people are like, oh, well, that happened too quick. I'm like, you guys, it makes me think that they've never actually been in any kind of heavy traumatic situation.
And this is the thing, because with a lot of stories, like I can imagine people going to maybe like a sort of a peppy, like, oh, I love fantasy. I love all of this. Grimdark isn't that. Grimdark is a hellscape dystopia where it's not about hope and success. It's about survival and mitigating the disaster, or just pushing it a little further away before it happens.
Well, there's still hope in all those things. Like someone said is, oh, these people have said, I love you too much. I'm like, bro, their family where everything has just been stolen away from them. The whole world's gone. They find out that 3/4 of humanity is slaughtered. And all they have near them is their family. So there's going to be a bunch of emotional, I love you, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't end. They're still in this life and death situation. And they're like, there's
you never know when it's going to be like just walking out to the store and it's like, I'll see you later. Going out into a hellscape where it's a case of like, I might die at any moment because there are monsters or there are people trying to kill us and stuff like that. It's like, I love you, because this might be the last time I get to say it.
I mean, I remember when my grandmother passed, man. It's like, and within 2 days, my my aunt, her children, my aunt and my mom, and all of them were there. I have never been hugged so many times and been told I love you so many times than within that day and a half, because everyone's scrambling to try to find some kind of emotional way to cope and balance and stuff like that.
But it's human at the end of the day. And I just think that a lot of the times where you have maybe readers that just haven't lived as long and maybe don't know what's as important or this and that. And that when you have so many books within the genre that are very, very firmly within the power fantasy element, or within the, the kind of just the leveling up progression, that a lot of the human emotion side, in my own personal opinion, is sometimes, pushed to the side. So again, that's not a rule of thumb. That's just my own kind of thoughts on it. But I don't shy away from it. I know yourself that you write strong female characters. I write the same, because that's who raised me. That's who I surround myself with. That is essentially, it's kind of like a...
majority of my short films are the lead is female.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like, it's a case of like, I've actually, the criticisms my books have gotten is that there aren't enough weak women. In that there's very few, in that they're like, but Brian, they exist. And I was like, they do, but it's such a nuanced one of like, if I write a weak girl or someone that's maybe ditzy.
Yeah, but there's also a bunch of weak men, so I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. And I write them very well. So, but it's like, it's almost like a minefield of being like, you know what, if I'm going to err on the side of something, I'll just make them too strong rather than too weak. So that
yeah, I mean, I think I think there's a difference. There's variations of what's weak and what's strong. You know what I mean? Like, there's a couple characters that betray the main characters in what is it, book 3, I think, Into the Gray, because their kid is kidnapped, and their answer to that is to be all underhanded and fuck people over trying to save their kid. Some might think that's both strong and weak. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, there's a lot of subtlety and nuance to a lot of things.
Have you seen the movie Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman?
I haven't, although I like both those actors.
I won't spoil anything of it really, but the main plot of it is that Hugh Jackman's children are kind of abducted, and it's literally of like, what lengths will someone go to get their kids back? And it is very unhinged in a number of ways, but you're kind of like looking at the character in the exact same way of, it's like, yeah, you would do literally anything, to kind of get them back. And he does literally anything to get them back. And it's I don't know what they want.
Do they want like the girl in the horror film that literally like something bad happens and they just stand there and scream and run directly at the danger? Is that what they want? Like,
just like, oh, there's a noise, we should investigate. It's like, no, you shouldn't.
We should all split up by ourselves and go into this.
Yeah. Oh, so JD, I don't know what happened there, but it looks as though your internet just went a little bit. But
I don't know. I thought the same with you. I looked at you and you went.
Ah, right. Oh well. Hopefully it just doesn't happen again. But we should.
Yeah, it's fine, man. It's just part of going live with people.
So one of the other things I wanted to ask you about was so games didn't really feature in your explanation there. Like, so LitRPG, was your kind of interest in it completely from tabletop RPGs? You did mention with Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, and I've been a gamer. I mean, obviously, I'm wearing Warframe. So I've been a gamer since the days of Commodore 64 and Atari and Coleco, and I even had a Coleco with the Atari adapter where you could throw the Atari games in there. Even before that, before those, I had Odyssey, which was like it had Pong on it. That was like the extent. So I've been a gamer and a role player all of my life, and in fact, I have an upcoming on Steam. We already have a store page. I have an upcoming
visual novel.
Yeah, visual novel, VN, called A Crown of Thorns. It's basically a prequel to my feature film script, Blade and Blood. That's like a post-apocalyptic film. So the VN, the film script, it's based on a short film I did. Then I wrote a feature. Then I submitted that. It's been award nominated and all that stuff. But it's basically the feature film precept is a guy. It's in a city of blood, post-apocalyptic, kind of like Sin City meets a Blade Runner kind of thing. And that guy, some guy gets tricked into killing 7 innocent people, so then he vows to kill 7 killers. So to balance it out, he said, I'm going to kill 7 killers in the City of Blood to make up for the 7 innocents that I... So then as he progresses through the killers, he realizes they're all connected, and it leads to the actual hierarchy of the entire city. So for the VN, I took one of the killers, the preacher, and I went back and told his story of how he goes from this honor-bound Jerusalem knight into becoming a serial killer by the name of the preacher. So that's what the VN is for, and that's coming out, I think, in July or August on Steam. The page, we're lucky. We already have 1,000 wish lists on it, and we haven't even promoted it beyond having a.
It looks good.
Page.
It actually looks good. Sorry, I looked it up there on Steam, and it actually looks really good. So, but yeah, no, you can say it's 1,001 wish lists.
Yeah, so. I mean, I don't code. I wrote and designed the game and all that stuff. But we ended up, I have a business partner, and we ended up hiring a game company to actually code it. And they've been working on it for over 2 years, like 2.5 years.
So I guess the other question I have is, like, on the gaming side of things, what would you kind of say would be your influences of, like, what sort of games, like, maybe resonated with you, or what sort of systems and things like that made
City of Heroes is one of my great games.
City of Villains.
I played that to death, and I still play it periodically with the re-up of it or whatever, Homecoming or whatever. That was one of my favorites as far as MMOs. Rifts for a long time I had a lot of fun with when it first came out. Now it's become too much of like a make money, like whatever. But when it first came out, I was playing it a lot. I did play WoW up until the Lich. I had a level 60 arcane mage or whatever. But when the Lich King came out and everyone could just roll a level 55 character, I was like, I have problems when games start doing that, where people can just buy a level 55, 60 character.
I went back for vanilla.
Stress and shit like that you had to put in time to get something that high.
When they re-released vanilla, I went back and I was like, I forgot how fucking hard this game is,
and I forgot how much fucking running you gotta do. I remember I had a thing at the Crossroads. I'm like, because I did that too. I played the classic, and I'm like, man, I'm like real time 10 minutes spending just running to the quest. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this, dude. I'm like, I forgot how fucking like annoying it was.
All my quest tracker add-ons, my skip like fucking mods and all of these things. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot how well we had it or stuff like that. But it was funny. It was good. Hey, Kev.
And then also like the original Morrowind. I love the Skyrim. Again, I tried to go back and play that recently, and it's just, I don't know, man. It's hard to go back to these games when they seem too outdated. You know what I mean? Like I try to go back and play them, and I'm like, man, this is too.
I remember this way better. Like
like I mean, when it came out, it was like just the shit, and then I'm like, but I pretty much like another one I play a lot is Grim Dawn, which is like a much better version of Diablo 3. And especially if you get the mod Dawn of Masteries, which pretty much triples the amount of masteries you can choose from. That game is always a go-to that when I'm bored and there's nothing else that's, but I also like stuff like Age of Wonders 4 is about to pop out, and I like that. That's a 4X, but it's also got strategy, and you can actually do turn-based. And then Baldur's Gate 3, I bought that obviously from you. And you know this. I bought that when it was first came out. I played it almost all the way through with my Drow Ranger, and then I was like, all right, I'm just gonna wait, because I'm just gonna wait for it. I don't want to burn myself out on the story or whatever. I've popped in occasionally when a new class comes out just to kind of look at it or whatever. But I'm a multi-class guy, dude. So like literally, I'm waiting for the whole game to drop, because I'm gonna probably do a warlock with a dip in the fighter.
Only 4 more months to go, man.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a 2-3 level drop into fighter and the rest warlock.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's like it is. Hexblade is one of my favorite things, but it's
yeah, I
like
don't know
so.
if they're going to incorporate that though, because right now the one thing they have that's oriented towards that doesn't do shit. So the
Mhm.
whatever the blade or the whatever it is,
Oh, like my favorite
doesn't do
class is
really anything.
Artificer, and I don't see that happening, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But
So the only thing with Warlock though is if you're fighting something that's locked up into combat, or if they're too close, your percent to hit goes to shit, dude. So
mhm.
I want to be able to like pull out a weapon and melee if I need to. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Oh no. So I actually beta tested it before I started working for them. Sorry, not beta tested, play tested it before I started working on it, before it came out in early access. And that was my first introduction to the studio. And one of the funniest things that I came across is that what happens to Gale when Gale dies. So that essentially he is surrounded by kind of necrosis, necrotic damage, and like
well,
everything just.
I never tested that theory because I didn't really use Gale.
But Gale, when he dies, he appears to you and he tells you how to resurrect him. But during this in real time, you're in a dialogue. But I was in a sequence where there was one of like the totem towers like shooting me, and I'm like, "Shut up, Gale! Shut up, Gale! Shut up, Gale!" And the whole
Yeah, I
time,
didn't like his whole thing of give me artifacts and I'm going to suck them up. I'm like, no, dude, I want that thing, man. I'm not going to keep handing you artifacts, dude, like shit that I could sell or shit that I could fucking use.
but it's super
I
fun.
always use what's her name though.
Shadowheart.
Yeah.
Oh, like it's because I recruited writers for it. It's just like some of the cover letters were the absolute funniest. And my favorite one was just at the end of it, just like I want Shadowheart to step on me, and I'm like, same girl, I am the same.
She's probably the only one because I think when we launch, we can actually just make our own people. I'm going to probably just Shadowheart might be the only one I actually use. And then if they add that tiefling, I might use her as well.
The bard.
Because I liked her character. The other characters I found kind of annoying, man. Especially when the vampire tries to get up on you. I'm like, dude, like seriously, man.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of those characters will grow on you. I'll just say, and there's some of the other ones
Yeah,
like
but like
if you
growing you what, like a leech or whatever, you know what I mean? Like a growing you like a lesion, like a cancerous tumor, or what, man?
Yeah, that's all I'll say. But it's fun. But yeah, no, you were saying about Grim Dawn, Diablo 2, absolute favorite, one of my favorite games of all time, playing as a necromancer, and it actually looks as though Diablo 4 might actually hold up. We'll see how the monetization
Yeah, I
goes
think I'm
on
gonna
it.
try a necromancer on that, but like melee based and not use the summons.
One man army is the way to go. But like, but yeah, I get you. Makes sense.
Yeah, I just found it interesting that you could throw the summons into a box and make one of your other abilities like more powerful or something like that. But I haven't actually played it, so we'll see how it rolls.
Oh, and one last thing on BG3. One of the more recent updates was the Paladin.
Yeah, I went in for a hot second and tried it.
But if you break your oath, you are visited.
Yeah, I've never been big on lawful good characters, man. I'm more of like a neutral good, chaotic good type character, man. So the whole lawful, I've never really in D&D played paladins. My thing was always kind of a fighter mage style.
Yeah.
So
you get cool powers if you go path of the Oathbreaker.
Like Rift, I played cleric a lot. I would tank. I would cleric tank in Rift a lot. But the one thing I liked about Rift though is you could change up your builds. So when I was soloing, I would play cleric, but turn it into a more DPS cleric. And then when I was partying up on dungeons, I would tank cleric.
So, like, to get us back to books a bit, I suppose, like, what would be, in terms of like stories that you've really enjoyed, as in like, so I know that you've read a lot of the kind of greats and you're a voracious reader, but like, are there maybe any lesser known ones or ones that you think, really kind of nailed a certain thing that maybe just resonated?
I think, and I've done this before because I believe in it. I believe I periodically go into one of the groups and like promo maybe a little bit lesser known authors that I thought were great. Well, Kevin is a great guy. I think his Creation Bane is a amazing series. Who doesn't like a chef that has a 7-foot she-wolf partner?
Yeah.
But another one is Guardian of Astor Falls by North. Brilliant series, brilliantly written, and it's in the kind of same realm, I would say, as He Who Fights and all that stuff, as far as LitRPG mixed with some cultivation and stuff like that.
Is Astor Falls the one where he turns into a non-human and has the relationship with his father?
Yes.
Is that yes. So I remember reading that when it was over
Turns
on
into
Royal
an
Road.
astral titan or whatever, yeah.
Yes. I remember reading it on Royal Road, and I was just begging him, like, just writing there, because like, please God, if you kill this dad, I will lose it.
No, his dad becomes an integral part. Yeah, his dad and
Fantastic.
his mom. His dad and his mom.
The class system with that,
I mean,
it was very well
him
written.
And his dad, but then the mom and the sister and all that come into it as well. But that's an amazing series. Another newer. I don't know, man. I read so many effing books, dude. It's literally like hard to keep up with.
I get
I would have to be looking at my list of books to like actually remember, but and I literally have drilled so many. I lately, as I've been focusing on just writing, the more I write, the more I read. So I've been like chewing, because those are my breaks from writing, is going out and reading. So I've been literally chewing through so many books, man. It's like ridiculous. I did want to mention, though, and I think we mentioned before we came on, that I'm super excited. After I finish book 5, which is I'm about halfway through, I'm going to be starting a new series called The Dream, that is actually based on a feature script that I had started writing. And it's grimdark, post-apocalyptic, sci-fi lit RPG. And it's very cool. It's kind of inspired by Warhammer 40K and Rift, the MMO I already mentioned. And it's going to be nonstop action. It's going to be third person. It's going to be have a few main characters that I'll flip around with. It's mostly about this group of what's called there's a group called the Lanterns. It's a lot to the story, but it's for pre-order. You can just read the blurb is pretty descriptive. But it's mostly about this band called the Warhounds. But I'm excited because the simple fact is because it's in third person, one of the main characters is female. I'm going to work with a female narrator, which I've been wanting to do. I wanted to do with the last book, but as we talked about, it's first person and male, so it really didn't make sense to do that. But I'm excited to have a female narrator on this one. I'll be looking for one as I start getting closer. But I'm excited about that. And I think I told you also out of nowhere, because I haven't really touched anything with film in like a year, I got hit by a young director that's got, about 100K. They're going to shoot a film down in San Antonio. And he asked me to play a small role in the film. It's also going to be, they're going to be also utilizing it as to pitch a TV series version of it. But it's kind of cool because it was out of nowhere. And acting has never really been my main focus. I've always been more of a filmmaker. I have had to act in a couple of my own shorts, but that was usually because the actor bowed out at the last second and I literally had to jump in and do it. So that's going to be fun, pulling out my dusty acting chops. And I don't know, I'm getting paid like $1,500 to go in for like 2 days and get a trip to San Antonio, which I've never been to. So
if it keeps you writing for longer and it keeps the bills at bay, then absolutely. And if you have a bit of fun with it, like for 2 days, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. The new series, once I get done book 1, I'll flip, because Blood and Brothers is going to be 9 books. So even after I get done with book 5, I'll still owe 4 more. And then I'm going to do book 1 of the new series, which is going to be 6 books. And then I'm going to kind of flip back and forth between them. But I'm excited about it because it's going to be a little bit different. A lot of different, but besides just going from fantasy to sci-fi post-apocalyptic, but this one's going to be nonstop action. It's going to be literally world at war, apocalypse.
I suppose that kind of makes me curious though, because like one of the things that I found, like I'm like Quest Academy, if you were to really look at it, is my second series, because the first one was Wild Cards over on Royal Road. And I learned so much from wildcards that I was able to just kind of put into Quest Academy to make it a lot better. So I was curious as to what would be the key learnings that you've taken from Blood Brothers that you'd immediately apply into
I mean, I've
Dream.
learned so much, dude, because I've been writing for 30 years, but literally I never had to worry about grammar. I was fucking writing film and lyrics and poetry, none of which is there a high emphasis on grammar. You know what I mean? Because the only thing people are going to see on a script is the dialogue.
Yeah.
All the rest of what you're writing is literally only going to be seen by crew and actors. Now, I'm very big on making it story. Like that's one of the things actors like most about my scripts and why they've done well in festivals is I actually do write a story and all that excess stuff.
Dialogue is the hardest. Dialogue is the hardest. Oh, fuck off. No one's waiting for Shadow Sect. So I wrote a story that only had about 4 chapters as a joke, because to say that anyone could write a Portal fantasy. And it was literally, if you were to look at the actual story itself, it is like taking every leaf out of Kev and Jez's playbook of angry bastard sent to another world, beat everything up, and hope for the best.
And
didn't even get to any fucking. All he did was murder everything.
Jez, the only thing I love Jez. Jez is, to me, he has earned every accolade he has. I love all of his stories. The Lightning Lord one is Rise of Mankind is probably my favorite of his. But damn, dude, get Beta her dog and fix Jack. Like, seriously, man. Like, come on, dude. Both of those people saved your ass multiple times, and you're making them way down on a branch for the fucking new dog and to get fixed up. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
I know, I'm here for it. And I'm like, Jez has accolades? What are they?
No, I mean, Jez is very good. His stories are very, very good. I've read all of his books. So I mean, he is one of the top dogs in the genre, and he has earned that. So, and he's now turning around and helping others with his publishing. So,
absolutely,
I give him great value and much respect. Although I don't want to break things, but do you know that Kevin's actually going to be writing under a pseudonym in all harem? It's going to be amazing.
No, on
his
one of our
name's
early,
going to be Jerry Twinklebottom, man. It's going to be awesome, dude. It's literally.
I literally cannot wait for that. Kev writing harem is just so wonderful to me. Like I actually really, really would read that.
No, we're having him on my show, upcoming show. It's going to be Kev's going to be on it, so it should be fun. So yeah, I mean, I've learned so much. But the simple fact is, like, I've never written a novel. Besides, like, over the years, like maybe starting one for a minute, hot second, and then putting it away and moving on to other things. So literally, these were the first 4 books. And so I have learned just shit tons as far as grammar. I mean, especially grammar. I've had to like teach myself. I mean, I've read since I was a kid, so a lot of that gets in your head. But still, I mean, and I'm having to do a lot of my own edits because I don't have $1,500 to hire an editor.
And it's really hard to see your own mistakes. You become blind to your own words because you read them correctly, and then someone else points it out. It's like, yeah, that's what it says. Like, what was it? I wrote something just like, oh, she cupped her face in her hands, but I wrote she cupped her face with her face, and I was like, yeah, that's it. Like, and you're like, what? So you get it. I get it completely.
Yeah, or you miss words that are actually words, but they're not the right words. Yeah. So like I think I told you before, I am always writing instead of from form.
Yeah.
Like I do that all the time. I don't know, it's just the way I type or whatever. I always, for some reason, misplace the O or reverse the O and the R. And so I had to go through and fix all that. But another thing also I learned in this book is you kind of get stuck in how you build your worlds.
Yeah.
Like I wanted Blood Brothers to be a bit more action oriented, but in the very beginning, I had him earn a city stone. And so he becomes the lord of a city. So then now I'm having to write city building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then even though I have characters helping him run it, so he can go off and do the adventure stuff, I still now have to incorporate all of that into the book. And
but
so now I
that.
realized in this new book, no fucking way am I giving him giving these characters any kind of responsibility other than killing shit and going accomplishing missions.
Like, the pacing is something that I am atrocious at. So like with Wildcards, it was chapter 18 was character creation. And they were like, "Oh, so it's not chapter 1?" And I'm like, "No, not even chapter 3. No, it's chapter 18 is character creation." And I was like, my pacing is atrocious. Like Quest Academy there, someone was saying to me, "Brian, did you know that all of Quest Academy takes place in 1 month? And it's a university." I'm like, "Oh shit. It's probably going to be the semester 1 trilogy if I keep going the way I'm going."
Yeah,
And
you have to catch yourself. You have to, I mean, literally, and my Bible of like shit I just copy and paste so I can remember it or whatever. It's like already like 90 pages or something like that. And then I have to go, when I have to find shit, I have to go scroll through the whole fucking thing and find out where, because there's literally no organization. It's just literally the next thing I need to copy, I copy and paste it to the bottom.
Absolutely.
And then, or the shit I forgot to copy and paste, and I need that info. So I got to go back into the old books and remember where the hell I put them, and then go find it, and then get mad at myself that I didn't understand. I should have copied and pasted that into the Bible to begin with, so I wouldn't.
Yeah. Like, have you gotten to the point where, like, I'm only like 35 now, and I've been going through my writing folders and stuff, or my Evernote categories and things, and I'll find be like, "Oh, I wish I got back to that. I only ever wrote a chapter of it, and I was curious as to how it go." And you go into it, and it's 9 chapters, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?" Or like you go like, "Oh, I need to outline that. Oh, I did that apparently a year ago." I forget stuff. I just forget stuff.
I do. I mean, come on, man. I've been writing for 30 years. I literally just and it's not even formatted, but I wanted to get it all of my poetry, lyrics, all the shit I've written, and get all my writing onto Amazon. So I went and put all these little chapbooks of poetry, lyrics, and shit that I created on lulu.com that I more did as like a secondary copyright or whatever. And then I slammed them all into 2 800-page books and threw them up on Amazon. And then on the same thing I did with 4 of my feature film scripts. I put that all in one book and also threw it up on Amazon just because I wanted all my shit. And I couldn't, as I was doing all that, I was like, I don't even remember writing any of this shit, man. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like, that was, it's been 30 whatever now, since 1990, so 33 years or something. So there's a lot of shit.
There's what that reminded me of something, and like this is something that like I don't mind admitting to you. So when you first started out, I remember you asking, I think it might have been in the LitRPG Authors Guild, it might have been in one of the groups, but you had posted up, be like, "Hey, I've just thrown up some of my scripts or like stuff onto Royal Road," and I was like, "Oh my god, he's going to get crucified." It was just that when you posted them up to
Royal Road, do that. Yeah, I put up 4 of my scripts, I think.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh god," because Royal Road has sometimes a reputation for like, "I don't understand this. This does not cater to my every whim. I'm going to review bomb the shit out of this."
And I've had that. Yeah, I've had that happen, but not on the script stuff.
Oh, well, that's fantastic, though, because I was so, like, worried for you. I was like, "Oh, no, we're going to lose an author."
No, I've had some people actually favorite the scripts, but no one really comments on them. I don't think I've had one review or anything on the script stuff. I mostly threw it up just to show that I do different things. Yeah. But I remember once my book 1, when I had to take it all down except for like 2 chapters because of the KU exclusivity or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember a guy like literally giving me a 1 rating and a review, bitching that he hadn't had time to read it when I did that. Read it all when I did that. I'm like, you're bitching because you didn't have time to read it all for free when it's up on Kindle Unlimited for free if you have Kindle Unlimited, or at the time I was charging $2.99 for it or something like that. I'm like, and you just literally review bomb, gave me a 1, which will knock all the ratings down because you, the entitled little fucker, didn't get to finish the story. And so that tells me that's how much you liked it, because you're so pissy about it.
Well, it's good that you're able to see the silver lining to that situation. But like, I am actually in the opposite camp to you on this one, because one of the things that I see is like time invested by the individual. That if they have literally, spent time reading something that you've written and something like that, that is intrinsically theirs rather than yours in that moment. In that if it's on a free platform and they're reading it, it's theirs for that duration of time. If it's like a bait and switch where it's kind of like, oh, hey, here you are. And then it's like, and it's gone now. Pay me money if you want to know what happens next. When you go into that without having that expectation set from the very beginning, that can lead to messy territory. But one person that now I wasn't a fan of this at the time, because I remember I was reading Aster Fall at the time on Royal Road, and then it just disappeared before it finished on Royal Road, because it was taken down and then gone up, and put onto Amazon, and everyone started review bombing because they were halfway through it, and then they're like,
because he's an author and he needs to make money.
Absolutely. But it's just the one practice I would always say is that to like let people know up front. It's just like, hey,
well, yeah, my book was finished for like on Royal Road for like almost 2 weeks before I pulled it to publish it. So yeah. I'm like, and all of my books that have been there, they're usually up for at least 3, 4, 5 days after I'm done before I pull them, because I have to go up on Amazon. And I'm like, brother, you're getting it for free. Okay. So like literally the amount of entitlement there that you're acting out. And that, first of all, I would never give a negative review to anybody. If I start reading a book and I don't like it, I just move on. Never would I ever, no matter how bad it is, mess with someone's dreams and aspirations. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of how bad it is, that person is trying to do it and trying to dream big dreams and want to be an author or whatever. And it's not my place to actually do things that would hurt that and that aspiration. You know what I mean? Now, if they personally asked for my opinion, I would be as constructive and as honest as possible. But just these people, I think I had a review yesterday, dude, that was like 3 stars, which I should be happy about, because once I went on Amazon's or heard their profile, it was literally like all 3 stars or less. It was literally like she had 90 reviews and they were all just bashing the shit out of all LitRPG books, one after the other. And there was a ton of 1 and 2 stars. 3 was as high as she went. So I should be happy that I got 3 stars. But I was just like, this is your life. This is your literary life, is to just literally go from book to book to book to book and bash the shit out of them.
Well, just on that, like I've already told you before about how that 3-star, my first ever review was a 3-star, and it broke me emotionally, and I was like, I'm only a 3-star author, and then I went on hiatus.
You gotta just let it go, man, and do it.
Oh no, and now I look back on that version of Brian being like, oh, my sweet summer child, you knew nothing. But you get to a point where you get to laugh at them. Before I started writing LitRPG, I pretended to be a woman on the internet. I had a female pen name.
Did you at least did you at least live the role and like walk around in a dress and stuff like that?
No, so I couldn't really do it.
You're not method?
No, well, I have 2 eyes, you see. I literally gave this girl 1 eye. She wears an eye patch because of a phallic incident of 2006 that she doesn't like to talk about. So I made this character completely off the fly, and I was saying like, oh yeah, she's an author, she's Irish, she's writing this, she's writing smut. And then people started doing like fan art, and it started blowing up a bit. And then I was like, oh no, I've created a monster. But money was coming in, and I was like, I can continuously write this. This is fine. And I got a 1-star review on Goodreads, and I clicked on it because I was like, these usually people that are enjoy that sort of story love this sort of story. So it's like a 1-star. I wonder what happened here. Clicked into the profile, and it's clearly someone who didn't switch their profile from their main account, because it was literally all of these like biographies of American presidents, stuff about the Cold War, all of this 5-star, 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 and then this one like erotica novel at the very bottom with a 1-star, and I'm like, oh, I want to screenshot and send it to him. But
dude, I had the same thing. I had on Amazon. Her profile name is So Busy Mom. Okay, gives me a 1 star on book, I don't know, 2, and tells me, and then writes, I had so much hope for this series, but then they made it unclean and talked about sex. I'm
Oh.
like, unclean. I'm like, what century are we in? Like, did you literally just say that?
It's so funny though, because like when I started writing wildcards, I tried to write a dystopian hellscape that people would absolutely hate and be super unrelatable, because I grew up in Ireland and I know only Ireland, so I created this absolute hellscape, and everyone's like, yeah, this really hits too deep because this is my situation. I'm like, what? I accidentally created America and their healthcare system. Because I was like, oh no, this is the corporate entities that are doing this to oppress the poor and do all of this, and
which is true, yeah,
mounted in debt and stuff. I was like, an absolute dystopia of like how the world could never work. And then people were like, yeah, Brian, that's America. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so sorry. And then I was like, traumatizing content. So,
like I told you, I just had to recently, because I was tired of comments, review bombs based on stuff that was just grimdark, and so I had to put that disclaimer. I put it on my profile, my bio, and then I put it on book 1, because if you, I was gonna, I'm like, I'm not gonna put it on every fucking book. If they read book 1 and read the disclaimer and then continue, that should be their.
But there's like, Jez has never had to put up disclaimers as far as I'm aware, and he writes pretty grimdark in his sort of stuff.
He does.
Well, he writes dark fantasy.
A lot, and
yeah, no, absolutely, and that there are themes that would be triggering to a number of people in it. But he's still like, flies. But there's other people that should absolutely be putting in like triggers and stuff. Like, for example, when I'm not the type of person that'd be clutching at perils and stuff like that. But when I see content, I'm like, ooh, you know what? That wouldn't be for everyone. That should probably be like marked in a certain way. So when I see people like recommending books like Everybody Loves Large Chests, I'm like, oh, which version? Because the original version was not tame and was very
and I think, but even people that have suggested my series on like LitRPG groups is beautiful. It's very blessed, and sometimes it's people I don't even know. But even them, they go, well, if you really want something really dark, LitRPG, then JD has this series, Blood Brothers. So obviously, it's people. Most people that even like it get to understand that it's actually dark.
Yeah, but like it's a. I suppose then, would you be able to maybe describe the Blood Brothers and the Dream as in the overarching theme? As in, what is the, like, so not to dive too deep into each individual story, but as in, like, what is the kind of the journey of sorts?
Well, Blood Brothers is about this family dealing with the end of their planet and trying to survive and find a path through, rather than just following this eternal war that is Warworld, and accepting that they're going to just sit here forever and ever and ever and just keep fighting these battles. The story is about this family not only supporting each other, but also trying to find a path through that ends it, as opposed to being a mouse in a wheel. The Dream, though, is going to be more about this small group of people when the entire planet is basically fallen down. Humans are scrambling to just survive. These hybrid demons have basically taken over the planet. It's about this one group, one of the last groups of the organization, the Lanterns, that used to protect humanity. There's only a few of them left, and it's about this one ragtag remnant Lantern group called the Warhounds that have given up in the beginning, basically are just hiding. But because of meeting this girl and her brother, they get renewed hope, and they want to try to go take out the cause of the entire world going down.
No, and that sounds good. Like when you said post-apocalyptic, but also sci-fi, I'm on board. And it's
well,
kind
because
of
when you
funny
say post-apocalyptic, they don't. They have like plasma weapons and stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, like that. Yeah, and I get it. It was funny though because you made the similarity of how it was similar to games for you, but Quest Academy is probably closer to City of Heroes, which is a fun little side.
yeah, I
So
loved my main character when I played it when it was live, not the Homecoming or whatever, was a
Mhm.
blaster. It was, and I named him Merlin Satan Spawn, and he was fire and force blaster, and he had wings, and I had him really went into the whole role playing thing of like he was Merlin, son of Satan, or whatever,
Mhm.
And it was funny because of that character. We were talking about this earlier. I had created an entire 12-book series, fully outlined of novels based on that character
Mhm.
that I never wrote, but I wrote literally the entire outline of all 12 books. And I wrote about probably 60, 70 pages of book one, I think. And it was the story of Merlin's Satan spawn and the real story of Arthur, which was like on a planet that wasn't Earth. And I wrote this whole entire spanning 12 books, spanning like 1,000 years of actual time.
So,
and it was all based on my City of Heroes tune.
No, that does sound really cool though. Like, I just remember, like, I actually remember where I was when, like, I found out City of Villains existed, and I was like, oh my god, like this is a game made for me. And when it got shut down, I was devastated. And then when the community
and a lot of people
brought it
were
back,
pissed off the way they did it, dude, because that game was still making a lot of money, and they just didn't want to screw with their launching of Guild Wars 2. And they didn't want to compete with themselves because that game was still had like over 1 million people playing it.
Oh
and there was
Guild
almost
Wars is
no
still doing
notice.
great.
And there was almost no notice, and they literally just shut the game down out of almost nowhere.
No, it's that's annoying. But like I'm looking up here and I'm trying to find the Dreams kind of thing. Did you put it up for pre-order on
Yeah, I did.
Amazon?
It's just either look under my name or the Warhounds.
Okay.
But if you just look under my name, it should be under my author page. JD Glasscock. And yeah, there's a long blurb that kind of explains the world.
I am looking. Oh, the Warhounds, book one of the Dream. Oh, have it here. But yeah, no. So like with the first reads, what we typically do is that we try and announce, like, the start of a. Oh, there. Thanks, Geneva. She sent me the link. What we usually do is that we read like the first in a series, and then just kind of go from there. But like if you want, normally
you just read the blurb of that.
Yeah, would you like? So I could do that one. So for the Warhounds, so would you like me to go with the blurb that's on the main page, or kind of go into the? Yeah,
you can do that. Yeah.
So this is the Warhounds Grimdark post-apocalyptic lit RPG, book one of the Dream, a sci-fi supernatural post-apocalyptic grimdark lit RPG. 2,000 years ago, a nuclear war ripped open the fabric of the universe itself and covered the sky with something that looked not unlike the Northern Lights. The survivors called it the Dream. All of humanity was harshly introduced to what the Dream brought, a system that resembled a video game, allowing the survivors of the Holocaust to level and gain strengths that could only be described as superhuman. Though nothing compared to the few survivors of the war who found that they could interact with it on a metaphysical level, who could gain gifts and learn tricks, and with those gifts and do amazing things. Most only got one gift, broken into one of the 4 domains of the heart, mind, body, or soul. These were called the gifted, the elite of the race. A small select group got much, much more. The ones that the gifts in at least 2 domains and were named sorceress, and became the alpha predators of humanity. Am I pronouncing that right?
Sorcerers.
Sorcerers. Ah, I knew. I was like, it keeps defaulting me to being like sorceress. Sorceress is like sorcerers. Yeah. These monsters formed the Academy of Sorcerers and ruled over what was left of people. But soon they found the more they interacted with the dream that it was not without its own life and dangers. It was not a phenomenon, but another dimension filled with beings, a whole other world, a place that long ago, a place that long ago in the past once touched Earth. It had two sapient races. One almost exterminated, called the Seed. Oh, thank you.
The Sheath.
Sheath, yeah, but Irish. Woo.
Yeah.
And the other, the conquerors of this other world and dominant species, demons. The more one interacted with the dream, the more chance it would cause an incursion. An incursion would release these malevolent beings for a brief period of time. Demons would corporealize during this window and go on rampages of slaughter killing anything living near the place of the incursion. Then something even worse happened. The demons found that they could find more permanency if they could seduce a host who was willing to bond with them. And they had little trouble doing so. There were many humans who were envious of people who could manipulate the dream. The norms, as they were called, who were, while getting stats and levels, had no gifts, no tricks. That described most, and so the demons found a plethora of meat puppets, and the invasion began. The Academy of Sorcerers knew they had to do something, so they formed the Lanterns, norms and gifted that were trained to stamp out and purge the human-demon hybrids. They were formed into 5-man battle squads led by an Inquisitor. And it worked for over 2,000 years, and humanity prospered and built wondrous tech mixed with magic and became powerful. Sorcerers ruled and the Lanterns culled, guardians of the light, but then all of it went to shit. The ruler and founder of the Academy of Sorcerers succumbed to temptation and bonded with one of the most powerful of the demons, a prince of their kind, and the corruption spread. The war was finally lost, and all the sorcerers were either seduced to join or destroyed in refusal. The Lanterns fought to stem the tides of the corrupted sorcerers, but were overwhelmed. It's been 50 years since what has been called the Fall, and hope is a legend lost in blood and endless corpses. This is the story of the Warhounds, one of the last surviving battle squads of the Lanterns, and Dakaris fell, the Hound, their leader. The world has fallen, survivors huddle in ruins, and demon-human hybrids roam what's left in packs. Can one Inquisitor of the Lanterns and the remnants of his battle squad do anything to change it? I am sorry for butchering most of that.
Well, you're good. But...
Yeah, but it was when I saw the sheet, I was like, oh, there we go. So, but it sounds really good. And I do love that it kind of deals with the kind of the human, the human factor when it comes to dealing with demons, of like, that you will absolutely be seduced by this, as in like, oh, the
well, and I'm
power.
still working on the entire system because it's going to be broken down into the 7 deadly sins. So the type of demon you're dealing with, from sloth to wrath to, and then the whole system, there's no levels. The way it's leveling is kind of like the old Black Jewels trilogy by Ann Bishop. The lowest level is opal, then jade, then topaz, then emerald, ruby, sapphire, whatever. And then there's 5 tiers to each one of those. You get the very bottom at opal, you get 1 stat point per tier. The next one, you get 2 stat points per tier. And then there's limitations, like norms can't go past jade, which is the second. That's their cap. Gifted can't go past whatever the 4th or 5th one is. And then only sorcerers, or if they're not part of the Academy of Sorcerers, they're called warlocks, can go all the way to diamond.
So what are an example of the gifts and tricks?
So this is where it's inspired by kind of Warhammer 40K and the psych type people. So you have, I should just hold on a second. Give me 2 seconds.
Are we finding the Bible?
Yeah, but and here it is right here. So examples, the heart is basically external elemental manipulation. So the gift would be, say you had the ability to manipulate electricity. Now a trick would be, hey, I can manipulate electricity in someone's body and paralyze them for a second. maybe my next trick, which I get later, is I can actually fire a bolt of electricity.
So it's a utilization of a gift.
Yes, and you only get so many. So literally, and like I told you, most, even the ones that have gifts, are they usually have one gift. To become a sorcerer, you have to have at least 2 gifts in 2 different domains.
Okay.
So then you have like mind, which is illusions, telekinesis, empathy, telepathy. You have body examples, biomancy, haste, strength burst, all that kind of stuff. Soul examples, soul forging, banishment, divination. It's basically internal, external soul manipulation. Body is internal manipulation. Then you have the she, which are broken down into, they're actually, so I don't want to do spoils, but here's the so you start off, okay, so you have jade, opal, garnet, amethyst, emerald, ruby, sapphire, diamond. There's 5 tiers to each one. Then you have, like I said, you have the demons hybrids go by a little bit differently. You have S rank, which are high lords, A, which are royals, B, champions, C, elite, D, officers, E, soldiers, F, grunts, G, dregs. But really, they're still the same thing. They just have different names for it. And then based on what their manipulations are or their powers are, based on which demon which kind of demon it is, whether it's a greed demon. And when there's a hybrid, that means they can go 1 rank above whatever they bonded with.
Okay.
So if they bond with a norm, they can only go, I believe it's, so let me pull down. So norm is opal is the max that a norm can go. So if it was a hybrid, they can go to garnet. They can go 1 up if they join with a demon. Then they get access to some abilities from the demon, which is why it makes them so tough to fight, because they not only have if they bond with a gifted, they not only have the power of that gifted, but then they also get some powers from being a demon.
See you later, Jez. Thanks for stopping by. He stayed oddly quiet when he was being praised, so my guess is that he had this on in the background. So yeah, for shame, Jez. Now's your only time that you can, refute this or make a rebuttal. So into the comments there, Jez, if you were here all along, or prove my suspicions.
Jez is usually not that quiet if he's actually in the.
No, I'm absolutely astounded that Jay isn't here.
Maybe the cat was in front of his face and he couldn't see past that.
That could absolutely be it. So one of 2 things is happening, as in either he is not here or he is writing a scathing comment, and it's taken him a while.
No, so that's going to be an exciting, and I wanted to try also, again, we were talking about earlier, learning a lot from writing the first series, and I went more with the kind of standard classes, standard builds, D&D build of classes. So with this one, I wanted to do something different. And I also want to start the attributes really low. Instead of 10 being the average, which is like a lot of the systems, I'm going to have humans be at 2, and they're only getting like I said in the beginning, 1 point per. And then the norms tend to specialize because they're never going to get very powerful. So they tend to stick all their points in strength or stick all their points in whatever.
So would an average norm be around maybe grade 3?
Like a tier 3 jade or whatever? Probably, yeah, I guess. So the story, the cool thing about this is also I wanted, which I didn't do in the first series, is I want to bring much more of my cinematic film background into this in the way I write it. So I want to bring almost that Scott Pilgrim versus the world feel to it. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to be starting the whole entire book with the point of view of a greed demon. And I want to, and they're chasing this girl and boy that are probably like early 20. You got to remember, in this world, they live longer because of the whole dream thing. But they're chasing this girl and boy, his brother and sister. And so it starts with the concept of from the POV of the greed demon. And then all of a sudden, his little lackeys, and the greed demon, I think, is only a soldier, like a opal tier 2. or tier 3. And all he has is dregs, which are literally usually demons bonding with animals. So they're still badass, but they're not that powerful. But anyway, so all of a sudden one of his guys comes back and go, holy fuck, lantern. We just literally there's lanterns over there. You know what I mean? And so then and I want to create more of this. I want to write it in the sense that it's very, and remember, I told you this was inspired by our feature film script that I started working on. So I want to write it in the sense that, like Scott Pilgrim versus the World, when you first see the Warhounds, I'm doing like a frozen caption.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very Overwatch.
And a little detailed. And then all of a sudden kicking ass, you know, and then the camera slides over to the next one and, you know.
No, absolutely. As in, no, I like that. And bringing the cinematic feel to things is really, really important. And the fact that like dialogue is your strong suit from, you know, the years of kind of like script writing, screenwriting and stuff like that, that is going to really, really lend itself to you, because I find that like if I was to ever have criticisms of, you know, a lot more the indie sort of stuff, other than kind of maybe pacing and flow, or not being able to build a picture or like a proper scene in mind, dialogue is the thing that usually turns me off a book first. That if it is stilted, if the characters don't feel human, if they're wooden or things like that, that's usually the first indicator.
And I even tell young filmmakers, script writers, whatever, when they're telling me, I'm like, man, usually people remember films by remembering pieces of dialogue. Not always, but that's usually like if I'm trying to remember a Tarantino thing, I'm like, I don't want to be Mr. Pink. Can someone else be Mr. Pink? You know what I mean? Like I'm usually remembering a piece of dialogue in the film. I'm like, you need to make your dialogue idiosyncratic. It can be the greatest story in the world, and obviously in film, there's a lot of things that have to happen: good acting, good writing, all of that stuff. But make your dialogue idiosyncratic, and make it, at least somewhere in there, there's dialogue that's memorable. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like even in the first book series, the whole Bones of Our Fathers, those were some of the first things when it was on Royal Road that I had people mentioning. Oh, I love the whole when they say Bones of My Fathers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And stuff along that, or Dozer. A lot of people love Dozer. You know what I mean? The pig.
Yeah. But no, it's, and like you're absolutely right. Like if I think of the scenes that were transformative for me, like, or just even thinking of like, you know, drawing inspiration, it always stems from dialogue. It's like, you know, you could have the most amazing spectacle, but it's what's said is that resonates with me. Like as in that, yeah. Like I think the only exception for me with that kind of thought was Pirates of the Caribbean. Where
I don't remember any dialogue, but
I remember it, like literally watching.
The characters were so idiosyncratic that you know, because I even kind of was inspired to write in my Western. I wrote these two dumbass dudes that reminded me of the two English soldiers in Pirates of the Caribbean that were just dumbasses.
Yeah.
So I wrote two villain-esque cowboy guys that were so fucking stupid, but they're highly memorable because they say such stupid shit to each other. That you know what I mean? Like there's one scene I think in that Western where they're like out in the woods looking for the main hero guy, and it's dumping rain, and he's like something like we need to just end this and get back to camp on my mother's grave. And the guy goes, how are you doing that? You're the one that killed your mama. Don't be bringing my mama's spirit up. You're going to make her show up. And he'd be like, but you're the one that killed her. You're the one that said on my mother's grave. You know what I mean? And they start this long ass argument that is just sheer stupidity. And, you know, and that's when the hero pops out and goes, really? Like, stop talking.
Yeah. But no, look, I think that is, I think the note, stop talking, that's a good kind of note for us. I think I have a lot of edits to get back to. Sure. And I want to let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. So before we wrap up,
I had a great time, and I do the same thing on my show, man, where I have to just stop it because we can just keep talking and talking and talking.
No, and I have to say, like, this was actually, I really, really enjoyed this chat because, as I said before, there was just so many fragmented snippets of like information I had about you, but like, it's much better to hear it from the horse's mouth and actually get the full rundown of events. It's exciting to hear about the dream. I'm probably going to steal a few things from you because I was thinking about I needed a demon hierarchy, and I'm like, good thing this is recorded. Just going to go back and see if I can get it released before you. But knowing your
Yeah,
release
I still have
schedule,
to
I
break
won't.
down. What I want to do though is break down per demon what are the standard abilities per type of demon. So I still have to do that where I have to like, say greed, there's acid, earth, and some kind of mind, or break it into domains, like 2 domains per type of demon, and then
Absolutely.
specific groupings of tricks or gifts that go along with that.
How do the demons, like, can they evolve, or are they just bound to the progression level of the person they bond with? Like, I know
Well,
you said that they
besides
can
the
only go up one.
boosting of one tier, or besides the boosting of one,
Yeah.
I forget the stages. So I'm calling the gem part stages,
Yeah.
and then you have 5 tiers in each stage. So the demons boost them by 1.
Hmm.
So a norm can go one stage above where their plateau would normally be.
Are they able to
Um,
progress at all before they bond?
Only in the sense that like anybody can. Yeah, that was how these demons finally first got their traction. Is you had all these norms that had no gifts, no
Hmm.
none of that ability to interact with the dream, besides getting tiers up to Jade and just getting some stats.
Hmm.
And so a lot of them were like, well, we're like weak as shit compared to these people with gifts, and
Yeah.
and you're always going to have disgruntled people. That's just the way it is. And so, but they kept a stem on it until all of a sudden the guy that literally founded the entire Academy of Sorcerers decides that he wants to be even more powerful. And
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's like, it does sound really interesting, and I think I'd like to give it a go. And even from just talking to you about Blood Brothers, I think I might give that a shot as well soon, because I do love the idea of proficient people going across. And even though it might have, eventually turned into a bit of a bane, the kingdom building stuff, the settlement building
I
is
mean, I keep
something I
it to a
really enjoy.
limit, but I have to talk about it to a certain degree. I mean, he's not the one that, even though he's the Lord, I have him get a spirit guide to actually handle all that, because I personally don't want to have to write about all of that shit. I just want to see the end result of like him throwing some plans out and stuff like that. Kind of like
And
how Jez handles it for the most part of the Rise of Mankind, where he
mhm.
has other people doing a lot of it, but
But yeah, like, do you pants or plot, by the way? Are you like
I
a
come from the
plot?
hip, brother. I have like end goals.
Yeah,
I have like plot
same.
points that need to get there, but then I'm all from the hip of how I get there, brother.
Yeah. Okay, no, this is a classic example of how we could actually talk all evening.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I will
exactly. I
pause
know,
there.
man. I get it. But
But
anyway, thank you for having me, and thank you for anybody that's listened or will listen or anything along those lines. And remember, you guys, like, dream your dreams, put the work in, and put sweat in. I believe in you. I believe in anybody has the ability to chase what they want.
yeah,
And
I
remember
absolutely
one
agree.
last thing: Viva la Glasscock.
Viva la Glasscock. Geneva, you can cut us off at any point now.